Fauci is, I think personally, there's a chance he will go to jail if any of this, if he wasn't in with all of the elites, he would go to jail. He has lied and covered up and in some ways, I believe, responsible for COVID-19. That's quite a charge.
Yeah.
It's quite a charge. I know.
You're laying out the evidence for this charge?
You're laying out the evidence.
Because, you can go back and, I think, question a lot of the things he's talked about as Senator Rand Paul has and many others have as well. It becomes more problematic as you get later on and we learn more and more about what he was doing at that time and knew at that time.
Oh, yeah.
He's
said and didn't say.
Yeah. It's really... because he's the noble lie factor really bothers me. This idea that he's allowed to tell us lies because his intent was quote unquote good and he was trying to save us all from this deadly virus. And that's just not acceptable. Not in the United States. You need to tell the truth. You need to say what you think herd immunity is at the time and what you.
This is the problem with the current regime, and that is that they don't believe in you. They don't believe you deserve to know the truth. They'll just get it done because you're going to stand in the way. And Fauci, one of the things that Fauci thought, people would stand in the way of was gain of function. And he's right. But he hasn't paid a price for this at all, and they're going for more gain of function. They are actually trying to finance now gain of function much more than we ever have. And it's bad. One of the guys who's been really strong on Fauci is Rand Paul, a doctor. Dr. Rand Paul, welcome to the program.
Hey, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Tomorrow is another showdown, is it not? The Senate Committee on Health and Education, Labor, and Pensions?
Thursday morning. Yep, 2 days from now.
Oh,
we're
2 days from now.
Back at it. And the thing is with the gain of function, he's not admitted it, but even the NIH admits that the viruses that they were emerging gained in lethality. He's somehow quibbling with the wording and saying, yeah, they got worse, they got more dangerous, but they didn't really gain in function. So I think nobody believes what he's trying to say anymore, and so we will be going back at it. But the real problem is this. It could be much worse. The virus that came out of the lab in Wuhan, which we believe came out of the lab, had a 1% mortality, and it's disrupted the whole world. And it's been obviously sad for the 5 million people who died around the world. But what if it's a 15% mortality next time? There's a professor from MIT called Kevin Esvelt who's been active in CRISPR research. This is where you do gene technology, and maybe someday we'll be able to cure things like hemophilia and other genetic diseases. But he's a leader in this field. He's not a partisan. He wrote in the Washington Post about a week or two ago and said that this type of research is so dangerous that it could be civilization threatening. And those are pretty strong words, and yet we've not had one committee hearing on gain of function. We have not had one committee hearing on the origin of this virus. And right now, all of the evidence, virtually all of the evidence, points towards it coming from a lab, not from an animal.
So I will tell you, we have some things. I'm doing a special in a couple of weeks, and we have put together some puzzle pieces. They knew exactly what they were doing in Wuhan, and there were several members of the Fauci Club that knew exactly what they were doing. And what scares me is the arrogance of these people that were involved and the fact that they want even more money. They think that this is a sign that they need to go and look for all kinds of diseases and COVID-like viruses that could possibly hurt us and do gain of function on all of them so we're prepared. That seems like insanity.
Well, realize as we speak, money is still flowing. U.S. taxpayer dollars are still flowing to Wuhan, to these labs. There's a grant that was extended from 2020 to 2025 that was revealed by a Freedom of Information Act. When Fauci's been asked, do you still trust the Chinese? He says, yes, that's where the viruses are. We have to be there. We have to be involved with their research. But the thing is we're not talking about a democracy or a republic. We're not talking about a free society. We're talking about a society where one party rules China and where the military is intricately involved in this type of research. And Fauci's response is, oh, well, the viruses we've looked at are too distant from COVID to be COVID. But we've never made that point. So he's arguing a straw man argument. Well, we've made the point is that the type of research could have created COVID. And actually, one of the research proposals, ironically, one of the ones that was turned down, would have inserted a cleavage site or a site to attach to the cells that looks just like COVID. Now, they say we didn't fund that one, but nobody's saying that the Chinese didn't pursue it on their own. And my fear is that we could get a pandemic 10 times worse than what we just experienced if we're not going to control what's going on in these labs.
So one of the other problems with all of this is not only does he not have any credibility, all of these things are being forced down the throats of Americans. And quite honestly, Rand, you know this, the Americans push back when they're told what to do. And this administration has done absolutely the opposite of everything that would actually make people feel comfortable with the vaccine and getting it. And now we are having people losing their jobs, losing their reputations just because they won't get a vaccine on something that has not even been mandated yet, except for federal employees.
Well, and realize that the science of this is that if you've had the disease, your immunity is as good as someone who's vaccinated or better. In fact, a large study out of Israel, 2.5 million patients, showed that your immunity is significantly better if you got it naturally. Now, this isn't an argument against the vaccine, but it's an argument that vaccine plus natural immunity complement each other. And that if we're going to discount natural immunity, it's completely unscientific and unfair to fire our doctors and nurses and firefighters and policemen, many of whom have had the disease naturally. If you're not going to test for their immunity and you're going to force them, it's really more about the act of submission. They will not bend the knee. They will not bend the knee to Dr. Fauci and to the collectivists everywhere, so you're going to have to fire them. But it's a great insult to these people, and we should resist it.
And do you see any justice coming for those people? I mean, will you be able to sue and win? Is this even constitutional?
It takes forever to get through the courts, but I hope people will pursue it through the courts. The one thing that may happen is we already have huge problems in the distribution of goods, both because of the lockdown, because of inflation, because of rules against independent truckers. All this is out there. What do you think happens? We've seen some interruptions where nobody knows for sure, but I think the pilots are sending message to the airlines they don't like the mandate. We saw 1,000 flights canceled by Southwest a month or two ago and then again by American. And people say, well, everybody's denying it had anything to do with the mandate. The reason is because the federal law, it makes it illegal to strike. So you find people coincidentally having a sick day altogether, but they are sending a message. So what happens, we're already short of policemen because the left have gone crazy vilifying our local police forces. Now what happens if we drop by 20%? What if we lose 20% of pilots, 20% of air traffic controllers? You can see the disaster. And it's the opposite of what we normally do. In a time of a crisis, those who are essential workers are usually exempt from mandates like this. But we're saying, oh, no, submission is so important that we're going to fire you even if it disrupts and makes the public less safe.
And I don't think that it is a coincidence that they picked November 22nd. That is the week of the largest travel in the United States.
They're insane. It's always insane flying that time of year. Can you imagine what it's going to be if we all of a sudden are firing everyone? I mean, these people really literally – they don't want to be in power. They're so insane, and what they're offering us is just chaos. And so do you think anybody in 2022 is going to want to return any of these people to office? I don't know. It's a recipe for disaster for the country, but also for all the Democrats that are advocating this.
Quickly, back to Fauci. What's the truth on the dog thing?
The truth is that, look, I'm in medicine. I've been around animal research, and some of it is necessary. But I've come more and more to the opinion that it isn't policed very well, that Dr. Fauci doesn't have good judgment. And the idea of cutting out the vocal cords of beagles so you can't hear them crying out in pain to me is disgusting.
And that's true? They did that?
That's from everything I have been given the information, I would say yes, that it is true.
Oh my God.
And I'll reserve judgment if somebody can find that that's not true, but that's what we're hearing. We've seen it published in many different locations. And the research did exist in Tunisia is where they sent this to happen. And so, yeah, a lot of research that just somebody's curious about, hey, wonder what would happen if we do this. That doesn't mean that we should torture dogs or pets in order to do this. The other thing we've done recently is I've actually decided that the mandates that mandate animal testing should be removed. So I have a bill called the FDA Modernization Act, and in it we say that a 1938 law that mandates animal testing should be voluntary. Doesn't mean there'll be no animal testing, but it does mean that if the scientists are convinced that they can study safety and efficacy without animals, that they don't have to use animals.
I think that's wise. Thank you so much, Rand. Appreciate it. Senator Rand Paul.
Thanks, Glenn.